Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of my tutorial series on the A320. On the last video we did the cockpit preparation, the boarding of passengers and the setup, and we are ready to push back, engine start, and taxi. So let's jump into the aircraft and we will get her going. So we're all set and ready to go. Everybody's on board. I have locked the cockpit door. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell them to pull the jetway away. And as soon as that starts moving out, we can get a hold of them.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard Flight
for the push.
5556 with service to London Gatwick. Our flight time will be roughly 1 hour and 2 minutes. Now that the cabin door is closed, please make sure that all devices are in airplane mode and your large devices are now shut down and stowed. Please fasten your seatbelt and make sure that all tray tables and seat backs are in a full upright and locked position for departure. Cabin crew, secure doors for departure.
So I'm running a number of add-ons. That was PAX. I'm using Pushback Express for my ground crew. List is in the description below. And we will tell them to get us ready to go.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight deck.
We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
So we're going to release parking brakes.
Parking brakes released.
Pushing back.
So while he's doing that, we're going to get ready to go. So we're going to come up to the overhead panel here, and we're going to turn on the fuel pumps. You can see them going out there. So now our fuel pumps are up and ready to go. Actually, we're going to stop that for a second, because one thing I did forget to do is we have to start the APU. That's what happens when I break my flow. Okay, so we have here in the center APU. Turn the master on, wait a couple seconds, turn the start button on. You can see down here on the ECAM, there's the APU system to start. So what the APU is, okay, the air intake flap is open. You can see her starting to spin up now. The APU is a small jet engine in the tail of the airplane. And what this does, it provides power off a generator to the aircraft when it is disconnected from any ground power. And second thing it does, it provides ram air for not only the air system inside the airplane for air conditioning and pressurization, but also for starting the engines. So what it does is it uses that high pressure air to spin the turbine up to speed where you can ignite the fuel and carry on from there. So you need that, because if you disconnect the ground power without your APU connected, the aircraft is going to go dark because it has basically no power on board. They're not enough. The batteries can't provide enough for the entire airplane. So it's coming up. You can hear things clicking away in the background as it works its way up. When it hits about 95% here, you'll see the APU generator information will pop up with the percentage and the volts and the hertz and all that stuff as we get ready to go. And you'll also see the bleed air information pop up on what our PSI is for the engine bleeds to get that ready as well. So there's the generators coming up. There's a 1% load on it right now because we're hooked into the ground power. 115 volts, and there's our hertz. 34 pounds of bleed pressure, and she's up and open. And when we come up to the panel and we go up to this switch here, the APU bleed, you'll hear the air suddenly kick in. There she is. And if we come back down and look, and we go to our buttons here and we push the APU button, yeah, everything is good and stable. We'll come back up. We'll disconnect the external power. Again, that's this button here. So the external power is disconnected, and you can now see the APU generator is reading a 6% draw. So it's now providing the power for the airplane. So that is really good. So now we can go back and do this again. just set the parking brake this time. There we go.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight deck.
We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
Parking brakes released.
Pushing back.
That's the scripting there. So the doors are all closed. You can see on the doors page, none of the orange symbols are marked as open, and all the doors have slide marked beside it, so the slides are armed, and we are clear. So APU is started, APU bleeds are on, APU generators are on, external power is disconnected, throttle levers are at idle, engine areas are clear, and he's going to tell us when we can start the engines as we go back. Fuel pump switches, we already did. There are no lights on them, so they are out or on. The lights are out. Engine mode switch down here between the two switches. We will turn that to the right, which is the igniter. And when we do that, our lower ECAM, as you can see, switches over
Ladies
to,
and gentlemen, please direct your
You are cleared behind
attention
and you
to
start your
aircraft
engines
for
at your
safety
discretion.
demonstration.
turns over to the
When the
engines
seatbelt
page.
light is on, please
And we
make
start
sure that
engine
the
number
seatbelt
one
is
first.
fastened
So all
well
you do
and
is
tight
go
across
down to the
back.
master here
Fasten,
and
insert
flip
the
it up.
metal fittings into one another. Tighten by pulling on the loose end of the strap. To release your seatbelt, lift the upper portion of the buckle. In the event that the seatbelt light is not on, we suggest that you keep your seatbelt fastened.
And I am
in case
steering the
of
airplane with the pedals to get it where I want it on the
Now
pushback.
locate one of the several emergency exits on this aircraft.
You can hear the engine starting up.
The nearest exit may be behind you. In case of an emergency and we need to evacuate the aircraft, there is lighting on the floor that will guide you towards the exit. In the event of a decompression, an oxygen mask will drop in front of you. To start the flow of oxygen, pull the mask towards you. Place it firmly over your nose and mouth, secure the elastic band behind your head, tighten the straps if necessary, and breathe normally. Although the bag does not inflate, oxygen is flowing to the mask. If you are traveling with a child or someone who requires assistance, secure your mask on first and then assist others. Keep your mask on until a member of the crew advises you it is safe to remove it. In the unlikely event of a water
Pushback
incident, a
complete.
life vest
Set
is
parking brakes,
in the pouch
please.
under your seat or between the
Parking
arms.
brakes set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar is disconnected and the equipment is clear. We will see you on the left side with the pin.
Thanks, and you can disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you later.
To inflate the vest, pull firmly on the red
So what
cord
happens
only
when you
when
flick the
exiting
switch up?
aircraft.
It starts
If your life
pulling
vest
the
does
air
not
off the
inflate
APU,
automatically,
spinning up the
slowly
turbine
spin
on
out
number
using
one.
manual inflation.
At 20%
The vest is equipped with a whistle and light.
speed
If
on the
necessary, your seat
rotation,
as a secondary
on the N1 rotation,
Pull the
it will
cushions
kick
from the
in
seat with your
the
arms into
fuel,
straps and hug the cushions
or sorry, the N2 rotation,
Once again,
20%.
all devices
Kicks in the
must be
fuel, the
airplane
fuel
mode, and
ignites,
your
the
larger
engine
devices
speeds
must be
up.
turned off and stowed at this
We
time.
monitor all our oil
Please
pressures
stow
and
your personal
temperatures
items.
and the
Make sure your
vibrations
seatbelts are fastened
down
in
here.
seatbacks and
Everything
seatbelts
looks
are in
good.
full
You can see how
upright
much
position.
fuel the
We
engine's
remind
using.
you that this is a non-smoking flight.
And once it's
Tampering with
stable
disabling
at
or
about
destroying the smoke
20%
detector
on the
located in
N1,
lavatory
which is the
is
top
prohibited by
gauge,
law. All of this information
we
can
then
be
come
found
down
in the
and
card
start
located
engine
in the
number 2.
seat back in front of you. Please read it and let a cabin member know if you have any questions. Thank you for flying with us, Jen, and we hope you enjoy your flight.
So N2 is the small internal turbine inside it, and the N1 is the speed of the big compressor turbine that you can see when you look from outside. So that's spinning up. You'll see at 20%, all of a sudden the fuel will start to flow. There we go. Temperature, exhaust gas temperatures start to come up there. And the top one is spinning, and she just slowly starts to spin up to speed. You could hear the flight crew in the back doing the safety briefing. Temperatures are coming up. You're looking to make sure they don't go into the red. You don't want them. That means you've got a runaway. Something's wrong. Now engine 2 is available, so that's 2 good engine starts. So we're going to come down, we're going to put that switch to normal now, and then we will go upstairs, and since we no longer need it, the APU bleed will come off, and the APU master switch will now come off. And now we're running on the main engines, and everything else is good, everything else is on, and we are looking fine. So that's the engine start and pushback. Sometimes you know which way you've got to face. Sometimes ATC will tell you which way they want you facing. So they may say facing east, or they'll say tail to the south. But you follow the direction because they've got a planned route they're going to take you out on. For us, we're just going to go forward, make that right turn, then a quick left, and then go down to the end of the runway. And everything would be good. So, before taxi checklist, probe and window heat. That's this button up here, just above the APU switches. We'll turn that on. That provides a bit of heating to the windows so they don't frost over or fog up. And it also turns on the temperature heat for the external probes, which gives us our air pressure and airspeed and stuff like that. Very crucial. Headings and altimeters. So our altimeter is set 1013, which is not what we want. Because if you remember, we set this earlier when we were doing our cockpit prep. We want 1009. So we're gonna get that in the right spot so it doesn't zoom in and out. So 1009, and that sets it on both. Ideally, it would only set it on one, and you'd have to actually set it so it'd be set and cross-checked. It is good on both sides. Standby instrument, it is set and the lights turned up. That's the one we set earlier. Radios and avionics would be on the right channels. We'd have ground tuned in on the active, standby tuned in on the other one. We may have on radio 2, we may put in, if we went to radio 2, we may put in our departure frequency so we can easily switch between them. Not a problem.
We're prepared for takeoff.
Thank you. Autopilots. Everything is set up. We're in managed speed, managed heading, which means the computer's going to deal with all of that. And we have our altitude restrictions set, so it will fly us up to 6,000 feet and then stop there. We're going to turn on the flight directors on both sides. Auto brake will go to max. So if we cut the throttles because we have to stop, it will automatically apply the brakes as hard as they can up until the point that they're going to skid, and then it'll ease off. So helps us stop. Flaps. If you remember when we set up the aircraft, we said we were doing a flaps 1, so we're going to go to a flaps 1 on our flaps now. And you can see them moving into position on the screen. We're now going to go to our flight control page on the lower screen here. And the flight control button there. And we're going to enter or do two things. First thing we're going to do is enter our elevator trim. So if you look there in the middle, you'll see pitch trim right there. So our pitch trim was up 1.0, so we're going to dial in, 1.1 on our pitch trim. And now we're going to do our flight control checks. And these are to ensure that not only are they unobstructed and working, that they are moving the right way. So we go full left, and you can see on the screen everything is changing. The controls are also moving in the cockpit. So there's full left, and we can come to neutral, full right, come to neutral, full forward, neutral, full back, neutral, and go left rudder, neutral, right rudder, neutral. So everything is working fine there. Flight controls will unclick the button so that the system can do the screens it has to do when the time is right. So at this point we call for taxi. We get the taxi clearance and how to taxi down, and everything would be good. So our taxi checklist, we turn on our taxi light. That's the switch right there. Taxi light is on. We'll release the parking brake. Keep the speed down to about 20 knots. 25 if it's a really long straight taxiway, but no more than that. During that, we'd be making sure everything is working properly as we turn. The gyros are showing the proper turns and everything. And there's a couple other things we have to do on the way out. So parking brake will release, and we're going to start to ease forward. So you'll notice on the screen that our TO checklist has come up. So auto brakes max, signs are on, cabin check. We haven't done that yet. Spoilers arm, we'll do that now. Here's the spoilers. We're going to pull that up, and that arms the spoilers for on the ground if we need them. There is a config test button at the top of the group of buttons here. We will push that, and that's basically just going to check to make sure that everything is done and we've clicked everything. And once we make this turn and we're steering using the rudder pedals, the aircraft has a tiller, but I've got nothing to hook it into to work as a tiller, so we're not doing that, although you could. I know some people, I'm not sure if they do it on this sim or others, where they've hooked it in. If they've got rudder pedals and a Z axis on a joystick, a twisting rotation, they use that twisting rotation as their tiller, which is pretty cool. So we'll watch the speed. Last thing we got to do is ding the cabin. So we'll come up and we'll do the all button. And everybody is now alerted. And we're ready to go. We're just going to taxi down here again, watching our speed. We don't want to get too fast. As we depart beautiful Edinburgh. So those train spikes, those pyramids you see off in the distance, that's a graphical issue that they are going to be fixing with the next update, so they say. We're going to go right down to the end of the runway here. If it's a really long runway, they may give you an intersection takeoff. Again, you got to remember, roughly you need about 5,000 to 6,000 feet for this airplane. So if it was a 10,000 foot runway and they're cutting 1,000 foot off, it leaving you about 9,000 feet. You got more than enough room for this airplane. It is a smaller jet, so it's not a complete worry here. So you can see our speed got up to 30, not ideal. This aircraft does have a tendency to accelerate under idle when you're taxiing. If you have a long runway such as JFK or LA or Amsterdam or something like that, what you can do is you can single engine taxi, always taxi on engine number 1. And you can do the same when you land if you've got a long way to go, and that'll help control the speed. But you should start the engine about 3 minutes before you're going to need it for the second engine, so that you have it available and it is warmed up and all the fluids are warmed up and everything is ready to go. So we're here at the hold short line for runway 06. And this is where I'm going to leave you for this one. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll try to answer them the best I can. If you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing, hit the bell notification, throw a like on the video. I live stream on the weekends, and the notices usually go up a day or two in advance. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.